young architect went to the Belgrad forest in the north of Istanbul for a walk, but he never returned. The incident had very strange, hard-to-explain aspects. I began an in-depth investigation on the subject. This was more than an ordinary disappearance case. It seemed like a very mysterious and strange incident. The subtitles, Emma, K, were very important, and it was necessary to start from the beginning. Gurel, on Sunday, March 2nd, tells her husband around noon, "I'm going outside just to get some fresh air and clear my mind." According to his own statement, her husband says he is tired and doesn't want to come. At first, EC says she will go to Hajj Osman City Forest, but she heads towards Belgrad Forest instead. At 12:56, she gets off a bus and enters Belgrad Forest. From this point on, she starts talking to a friend in England. While walking, she also sends photos to her, a friend with whom she had previously walked in this forest. What's interesting is that while she tells her friend where she is and sends her photos, she doesn't even mention to her husband or anyone else that she's in the Belgrad forest, let alone send them any photos. You'd expect her to send photos to her husband saying things like, "Look at this beautiful place, I wish you were here too." But she doesn't do any of that. This is actually another sign of how lonely she's become. EC keeps walking. She comes to Bentler Nature Park and sends another photo to her friend. The photo is taken exactly from this spot, from the part looking toward the pond just behind the blue railings. She tells the person she's talking to that the area is getting crowded and she can't find the exact spot. Later, she shares another photo at a spot near the previous place, by the edge of the pond. Then she sends 2 more photos. She probably sends these while continuing to move forward. And at some point, she sends a message saying she's lost. Right at that moment, the moment she sent the message, East is probably somewhere within the boundary you drew. And she's heading towards the Valid Sultan pond walking trail because that's the route she's following. The message, "I sat down, my soul stayed behind," has been interpreted in peculiar ways by some online. This just sounds like a metaphor. This phrase means that the body, which moves quickly, needs to wait for the soul that lags behind. When Native Americans walked for a long time, they would stop and rest, waiting for their souls to settle back into their bodies. We can guess that Ici was actually in a very emotional state at that moment by making this metaphor. Ichi writes, "I'll let you know when I find the place I'm looking for," after this message. At this point, we clearly understand that she is moving forward on her own and searching for the place she wants to go. When Ici sent this message, it was around 2 to 4 o'clock because she had only walked about 3 to 2.49 miles at that point. After her last message, her friend gets worried and asks, "Isn't your navigation on?" In a normal scenario, AC would probably go to the Valide Sultan walking trail, complete the trail, and return home. Just an ordinary walk in the Belgrad forest. Because according to what her husband said, Isi was fasting and she needed to return before iftar. As Isa headed towards the Valid Sultan Dam, she likely made a significant error by venturing into the inner forested area instead of walking along the pond's edge. Around 3 or 4 o'clock, Isa's family and husband called her. Her phone rang, but she did not call back. Around 6 in the evening, her phone was completely turned off. If you look at the possible route where Isi is thought to have made a mistake, you can see that it is an area with dense trees and no businesses around. Moreover, the area she was in is quite rugged terrain. I'm talking about an area of approximately 3.72 miles. You are fasting and dealing with the emotional stress of losing your job during a difficult time. If she fell while walking in this rugged area she entered, which all the reasons I mentioned could have caused her blood pressure to drop and lose her balance. When she was found, there were scratches on her legs. That's why, for all these reasons, she may have fallen for some reason and spent the whole night lying there unconscious. This situation also explains why she didn't respond to calls and didn't get back to people. She probably couldn't let anyone know her location because her phone ran out of battery. But here's where the interesting part begins. The search teams who started the search found Isi's coat, bag, and phone exactly in the area I thought she might have headed to 2 days later, on March 4th. They were neatly folded and left there. After the searches around 1 a.m. on March 6th, the teams found Ise Guler lying down right next to a tree stump, about 164 yards from the walking trail. about 0.62 miles west of where her belongings were found. There were scratches on her legs caused by brushing against branches. Her body temperature had dropped to 25 degrees and there were clear signs of hypothermia. Her hands were shaking and she was not fully conscious. You already know what happened next. The autopsy report stated that Eek was not attacked in any way, did not use any drugs, and that her death was due to organ failure caused by hypothermia. During the investigations, an intriguing detail emerged. According to the claim, Ease had been receiving witchcraft training for about 6-7 months. This is usually a training process that includes nature-based spiritual practices, magic rituals, herbal healing, astrology, and energy work. These are already included in the training content. One of these rituals is quite interesting. In some spiritual movements, it is believed that a person must abandon their old identity. This is especially seen in shamanistic and pagan traditions. I don't have any formal education on these subjects, but when I researched the sources, I found that on March 2nd, 2025, the moon will be in its first quarter phase. This phase is said to be associated with new beginnings, decision-making, and the rise of energy. In spiritual and witchcraft practices, this period is considered one of the best times for setting goals and gathering energy. I can make sense of everything, but leaving her valuables and her coat neatly on the ground in that cold weather doesn't make any sense to me. She probably wanted to break her ties with this world and go through a complete transformation process. Maybe she performed a ritual by leaving her excess belongings behind and then surrendered herself to nature. Maybe the next day she waited to wake up with a new personality or as someone purified. Of course, these things you said are for a scenario where we assume she performed a ritual or something similar, but it's very strange for someone who has had scouting training, is a landscape architect, and has been to that area before to get lost. Even if we accept that she got lost, she should have returned within 2 days at most. Since it was a sheltered area, the places she could go were already limited. Even in the worst part of the forest, there are walking paths. If she had followed them, she could have been found. It's illogical to use hunger as an excuse because a person can survive up to 10 days without eating anything. We witnessed such situations during the earthquake, and if a person drinks water, this period can extend up to a month. Some people thought that EC took off her coat because of paradoxical undressing caused by hypothermia, which makes you feel excessively hot. This is impossible because the coat was found on March 4th, but East was found on the night of March 6th. A person with severe hypothermia would not survive for 2 days after removing their coat. In reality, the opposite is true. EC entered hypothermia after removing her coat. Thermal drones are an interesting detail. They were never able to detect East, who was in the area. On the day she was found, March 6th at midnight, it's clear that East had been there for a long time. She was in a state of hypothermia, which doesn't happen instantly. The search teams found her in the forest by chance. So why couldn't the thermal camera drones they mentioned detect East, who was just lying there? Since EC experienced hypothermia, she must have been exposed to the cold for days, indicating she was not staying in an enclosed area. So how is it possible that EC, who was in that area for exactly 3 days, couldn't be detected by the thermal camera drones? This situation definitely needs to be investigated. Actually, someone who is going to perform a ritual wouldn't ask their spouse to come along. If she wanted to disappear, she wouldn't have told her friend her location. Her message, "I'm lost," clearly indicated that she was in a remote location, far from any people. Fatigue-induced excessive emotionality and hunger led her to lose her sense of direction. But she said, "I'll get out from somewhere anyway. I'll find my way." She sweated from walking near the last place she was found, wanted to rest, and that's why she took off her jacket. She put her bag next to her. While she was resting, she might have encountered a wild boar, a jackal, which are common in the area, or maybe a dog. She ran away and left without taking her jacket and bag. She probably went quite far out of fear. Maybe she wanted to come back, but the animals she saw appeared in front of her again. I don't know. But we know that she never returned to where her jacket was. It was estimated to be around 3 or 4 o'clock because none of the calls made after this time were answered. He had been hungry, tired, and jacketless for hours. After dark, he must have sought shelter. Maybe he couldn't sleep at all during the night and fell asleep when morning came. anything is possible. In the end, hunger, fatigue, and extreme stress didn't allow him to think rationally and therefore prevented him from getting out of this forest. In my opinion, this is the most logical option. So what do you think could have happened? Remember to share your thoughts in the comments. This is NYGMA signing off for now.